So again, welcome this morning as we embark on an Eric Butterworth series on the 7 main aspects of truth. And this is basically the 7 main aspects of fundamental law, the laws of the universe. Eric says that we can look at it as a jewel of truth. And like a diamond, it has many, many facets. And so these laws have many, many facets. We're going to look at the idea of truth metaphysically in terms of what it is and how it works in consciousness. Now, according to the dictionary, metaphysics refers to the science of first principles. The student of metaphysics is one who is persistent in the attempt to find the underlying principle of causation behind every manifestation. So it's the awareness that beyond the great diversity of life and beyond the many changing experiences of human unfoldment, that there is something that is changeless, something that is whole, something that is one, and we call it. So we need to understand that spiritual law is a non-verbal expression of a divine force. Truth is the underlying reality. We can try to put it into words, but as humans, we tend to see things as they appear outwardly. So we're urged to try and make an adjustment in our consciousness so that we can see that what we see out there becomes only a surface expression of something else that is true. So here's an example. We know that the earth revolves around the sun, but to the human eye, it appears that the sun is moving because we see it rise in the east, we see it move across the sky and then set in the west. So in the same sense, when we see what we see with the eye alone, we can only perceive part of. We can only perceive part of the picture. So the first of the 7 main aspects of truth, one of the facets of the jewel, is the law of being. And here we're being asked to look at the larger perspective of the whole. We've been indoctrinated to view everything with a dualistic structure. And within this dualistic structure, we experience a separation. So now we're being asked to see things differently, to look at it differently, to see the whole perspective, not just with our human eyes. You know, we say that God is all, God is love, God is everything, God is manifest in me as me. But most of the time we're doing that purely with the intellect. And we view God as something being outside of us. So let's look at the law of being. The book of Genesis starts with in the beginning. But that's not referring to the beginning of time. It's talking about stages in the spiritual unfoldment process, stages in our levels of depth in consciousness. We can look at the book of Genesis as the foundation of the creation process and the foundation of spiritual law. But we need to approach it from the level of truth, from within the depth of consciousness, not with just the human eyes or human intellect. So when we're thinking about God in terms of being, and being with a capital B-E-I-N-G, being, the wholeness, the allness of everything. So when we think of being, we know that it encompasses everything. And the idea here is one of expansion, to expand our awareness of God in its fullness and in its allness. Pierre Teilhard de Chardin speaks about this in his work, Divine Milieu. He says that when we get this larger sense of God, of the infinite, of divine mind, the absolute, there's nothing left to worship. There's nothing left to pray to. There's nothing left to talk to. It means that you've expanded the reality, your awareness of reality and the awareness of God to the point where it becomes allness. It becomes all encompassing, and that's all there is. Scripture says we say the word God is, and then we cease to speak. Because any attempt to describe it is going to be limiting it. The Psalms tell us to magnify the Lord. To magnify means to make big. So we're being told to expand our consciousness, expand our concept of God. When we do that, then we can begin to understand being. And again, those are all capitals, B-E-I-N-G. Because in being, there is no room for limitation. There's no room for separation. There's no room for sickness. There's no room for negativity. There's no room for judgment. All those things don't exist in the whole. And that capital also, W-H-O-L-E. That's not to say that no one ever gets sick or no one is ever not negative, but it implies that there is always the whole, the allness of things, the beingness of God. And that is the underlying reality. That is the key to betterment, the key to growth, the key to spiritual healing, the key to overcoming. We realize then that we exist as an individualized expression of a wholeness, of an infinite mind process. And we know that we can no more be separated from being, from God, from wholeness, from the infinite, than a smile can be separated from a face. You can't separate a smile from a face. You can't take a smile off your face and put it somewhere else. Just like you can't remove a wave from an ocean. A smile is your face expressing as a smile. And a wave is the ocean forming itself as a wave. You can't take the wave out of the ocean. You can't take the smile off the face. In that same sense, there is no way that you or I can be taken out of being, out of the allness of God. Because what am I? I am the allness of God expressing itself as me. Or I am being me. That's the truth about all of us. You are being you. You are a wave in the great ocean of the infinite. You are a smile on the face of God. You are infinite being in the process of articulating itself as you. You are being you. So prayer should not be to God. There's no one to pray to God because God is not outside of you. If God is the allness, then you pray from the consciousness of God. You pray from the consciousness of being. Your prayer then is a process of knowing the truth, knowing the underlying reality, knowing you are an individualized expression of the divine process, that the allness of the infinite is manifest in you. When you do that, then your prayer is not to make something happen, because there's nothing out there to make happen. It already is. We affirm the truth. So we need to get away from this dualistic structure that believes in separation and influences our consciousness. We are not now, nor we ever been, separate from God. You know, since biblical times, people have gone to temples and churches and mosques to find God. But that perpetuates the thought that God is in that place. And the only place you can find God is in that building. This perpetuates the illusion of separation. The medieval philosopher and theologian Meister Eckhart had a great consciousness of what we call being. He said, if God is all existence, it is impossible that anything should exist apart from him. For this thing would be outside being. All things, therefore, in their substance are themselves God. What else they possess in time and space is only an appearance. So until we realize the beingness of the infinite, then our God is not great enough. We're limiting God. And again, everything is of God. If God is all existence, it is impossible that anything should exist apart from it. Have you ever found yourself asking, how could God allow this thing to happen? That in itself is evidence that God, in your conception, is not big enough. This is evidence that you're trying to understand God or see God through the eyes of limitation, through the human mind, through the human eyes. Whenever we experience difficulties in any area of our lives, the thing is not to say, how could that happen? But it's to shift that and say, how can I make the adjustment in consciousness so that I can know that there is only God? Then out of the realization of allness, the beingness of God, our perception is going to be clearer so that we can see not by appearances, we can see clearly. We can see out of the process of oneness and wholeness. And then seeing will be a healing process in which we can be on the side of solutions rather than on the side of problems. And then gradually, we develop an understanding that will sustain us and satisfy us. If we continue to say why, then we're putting our consciousness on the side of the problem. The challenge is to continually expand our awareness to the realization of the allness of God. Another facet of the jewel is what Eric Butterworth calls the principle of unitivity. This is that wherever spirit, God is, then the whole of spirit must be. And because God or spirit or being is omnipresent, so the whole of spirit must be present in its entirety at every point in space at the same time. The thing is, within human consciousness, the allness, wholeness, and beingness of the infinite is beyond intellectual comprehension. Butterworth says, and I quote, I don't think the human mind can conceive of this, that the whole is always present at any given point in its entirety. This means that the whole of divine mind is at the point of my mind in its entirety. Therefore, my mind is a smile on the face of divine mind. My mind is an activity of divine mind. My mind, my intelligence, my creative capacities are simply the outforming process and the expression of divine mind and the creator in its entirety, wholly. Therefore, there's no person that has a greater access to God or has within them a greater fullness of God that you or I have. Just breathe that in. Breathe that in. He goes on to say, the only thing we can be is the unique individualization of ourselves. You and I and everyone else is a smile on the face of divine mind, is an outward focusing of the infinite creating process. Each of us is being. Our role is to look beyond the worldly facts, relate to truth, and then identify with it. When we identify with that truth, the truth of being, then we begin to form it into affirmation and affirm the truth. not to make it so, but to actually identify ourselves with this divine flow so that we become more and more conscious of the truth. It's not to make it, it's to accept it because it already is. So we begin to realize that prayer and affirmations are not a process of trying to get answers or to get God to solve our problems because we're already whole. It's to realize that God is the guiding principle, the flow of life. God is a relentless, changeless force within us that is seeking always to fulfill our needs and to direct us in the total implementation of the things that our mind seeks to do. The principle is always working, and it's up to us to get a larger concept of God as being, as allness, as wholeness, and to begin to see ourselves in terms of eachness. So I invite you now to close your eyes as we move into meditation. Just allow yourselves to get comfortable in your seat. Put your feet flat on the floor and just allow yourselves to breathe. With every breath you take, you become more and more relaxed with each exhalation. You feel your breath slowing down and you breathe at a comfortable pace. You feel your mind and your body just so relaxed and you completely let go. You allow all thoughts to just leave and you become present in the awareness of now. The awareness of God within you expands so that all that is the awareness of being, the awareness of the divine presence that is everywhere at all times. I am a smile on the metaphorical face of God. I am a wave in the unending ocean of God. I am an individualized expression of pure being. I am God expressing in the world as me. God is everywhere present, always at the same time, all the time. Therefore, I am spirit, and all that I see with my human eyes is God. I see beyond appearances and aware of my oneness with the allness and beingness of God. There is no separation. Separation is an illusion. There is only being. And now I allow myself to move deeper and deeper into the silence. And I just listen. And now I invite you to bring to mind anyone who may be in need of prayer. All those on our unity prayer list, on Silent Unity. And we extend this to the wider circle of the world. We affirm and know that there is a power and a presence within them that will see them through any difficulty or obstacle that they are experiencing within the world. All things in the world is temporary, but the allness and the being of God is constant. And we remain in that divine flow, affirming that all is well and we are whole despite appearances. And now I invite you to bring your consciousness back into your body, back into the room where you are. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And welcome back. And this is the time in our service where we have the opportunity to give, to share our gifts. So I ask you to visualize or hold your gifts in your hands, or visualize your credit card or the PayPal symbol or the donate button on the website, as we affirm that we are so grateful for the ability to give and for the ability to receive. We affirm that we are constantly in the flow of unlimited resources, for we know that God is our source and God consciousness is our supply. So we expand our consciousness of good. We expand our consciousness to know that all is provided, has already been received, all has already been given. And we extend this truth to all. So I invite you to bless these gifts with me. Divine love as me blesses and multiplies all that I choose to give and all that I am open to receive, and I am grateful.
And our closing song in a minute. Okay, the closing song apropos to the law of being.